What's a little? Oh, there we are. Are we live?
We are.
Again, I can never get it right. I thought, you see, that we weren't live for a minute. I clicked all the right buttons, but nothing happened for a minute or two. Good morning, everybody. Here we are again. I think, probably on my tombstone is going to be written, are we live? Or should I say, are we alive? Anyway, good morning, everybody. And we've got, hopefully, we got a nice show for you today. I'd like to say good morning to my spirit guide, Gregor, who is always, as always, standing to my right side. I would also like to say good morning to Al. Good morning, Al in Colorado.
Good morning.
And of course, I've got, if you can hear panting and puffing, it's my puppy who gets so hot these days. We've got the fan going for him. I don't understand it, but he does puff and pant a little bit because he's getting older. And Carolyn will be popping in and out in a little bit, but she's not here right now. We've got other stuff going on. So first of all, can I just say, Al, before we sort of begin this show proper, I'd like to say thank you to everybody who's been watching our Everything is Attitude show. You can find us on Facebook, on the healing page, or on the main page of my Facebook. Also on YouTube. We just managed to get it up this week on YouTube. So we've only done 2 shows so far, and they're both up on YouTube. We've had such a brilliant response. We have so many viewers. So thank you for that. And we will be, if I forget to say, we will be with you also tomorrow, 6 o'clock Eastern time, Standard Eastern time. That's New York time for anybody who, sort of is not sure about the time limit. So we'll be there, at 6 o'clock my time, which is, I do believe it's 11 o'clock English time. And what time is it where you are, Al? It'll be
4 o'clock here.
Right?
Yep. Correct. Yep.
And so we'll be doing that show, and we're asking you if you'd like to be on that show with us to ask your question or to air your question. Please feel free to email. Al, you need to give the email for us. Email. You can email this office, but it's which of course most of you will know the email to this office by now. But Al, we have a special email address, right, for people who want to participate in the Everything is Attitude show. So can you give that email out, please?
Yeah, it's info, INFO, at everythingisattitude.com. Great,
brilliant. And I'll ask you to do that again later on in the show for those people who join us later on. All right, so I think that's it, really. So Al, do you have anything great to tell us this week before we get going on our questions? Because I know people, like to have their questions asked, and I think we've got a few questions coming in already. Or before I go any further, thank you to Dean for his comment on my liver. I know, can you imagine liver pate? I know people say, yuck, I could never eat liver, but it's so delicious. And I did do a little YouTube thing in Rosemary's Kitchen the day before yesterday, where I made the most delicious chicken liver pate. Anyway, Al, what were you doing this week? Anything that we should know about? Anything special? Anything you want to know about? You would like to tell us about?
No, just as usual, doing a lot of hiking in the mountains, and have some beautiful weather here in Colorado. So it's been nice. Fall is coming, but it's still pretty warm here. Sun always shining, so it's nice to get outdoors.
Are we lucky or what? We live in areas where the sun is always shining, although we've been having a few thunderstorms, but only really in the afternoons, and they only last a couple of hours, and then we're done. Unfortunately, this big hurricane coming in, I think it sort of skips by us a little bit. So we're sort of not going to get it. But Hurricane Florence is on its way. So please understand, all of you out there who, I know there have been a lot of evacuations. There have been a lot of mandatory evacuations. Please know that our prayers are with you and we're thinking of you. And, it's important that people know that, they have support of people, not just in their own area, but people around, around the world. So for all of you who are, nervous, afraid, and for all of you who have family who are going through it, please know that we are with you, and we're sending our prayers and our healing to all of you who are out there who are going through a tough time at this moment in time. We've just been joined by Carolyn, so why don't we just go in, Al, shall we go in with our first question? Is there an issue here?
Do you want it to keep flipping back and forth, or
do I need to?
Yeah,
sorry, do I need to click that? Thank you. There we are. Okay. So right. So Al, do we have anybody? Actually, I should ask. I'm just.
We do.
We do.
We do. Yes, we do. We could start off with Kim. She has a question.
Good morning, Kim.
She asks, if we choose to come and be here in human form, do we know what we be getting into, what our life will be like, etc.? To learn, yes, but some have it so good, and some have a lifetime of terrible struggles.
I know, it seems, I'm just going to move this, just twiddle this a bit. It seems so unfair, don't you think, sometimes that some people seem to have, everything, and then there are so many who have absolutely nothing at all. Do we know before we come to this earth? I think that's such a brilliant question, and I can answer this with some confidence because I've talked to Gregor about this over the years many times. When we decide to come back, because it is our choice to come back here and to have this earth experience, when we decide to do that, there are reasons behind our decisions, and those reasons are mainly concerning, the growth of our soul, the growth of who we are, what lessons we need to learn, how we can learn them best, and so on and so forth. So basically, if I'll put it sort of simply so that people can sort of understand more simply what I mean. It's a bit like, we have lots of different conversations with those in the spirit world who are much wiser and much more knowing than we are. And if we want to grow, we want to learn. It's a bit like finding a teacher, when we're here on this earth and we're looking for a spiritual teacher, and we're looking for help and advice for certain things. It's a little bit like that. So we have these conversations with people who can help us, and can help us to see perhaps what it is that we need in order for us to learn and to grow. So we choose to come here to have those experiences which will give us that learning process. We don't necessarily know what those experiences are going to be. We don't necessarily know what form the lessons are going to take for us to learn and for us to grow. I think if the majority of us knew what form those lessons were going to take, we perhaps would think twice about coming back here and doing this all over again. But we trust. What we do is we put our trust and our knowledge in those who are wiser than us, in that God force that knows us and is able to place us in positions, in situations where we're going to have those experiences which will expand, or will have the opportunity for us to expand our knowledge and to expand our spiritual growth in a way that is right for us. And so, so we're basically put into situations and having to deal with experiences and people in order for us to get the best out of our growth process. And very often, unfortunately, that means that we have to go through the heartaches, the pains, the difficulties, and so on and so forth, that the majority of us do have to go through. Some of us less strongly than others, but we learn from our adversities. I once said to, well, actually more than once probably, I said to Grey Eagle, why can't we learn from our joys and our happinesses too? And he laughed and he said, well, yes, we do learn from those things, but unfortunately it is pain that most teaches us. It is pain that gives us pause and makes us stop and say, hold on just a second, and so on. I had a friend who said yesterday, we were talking about, pain and heartache and all the rest of it. And the friend said to me, if you can see a tail wagging away, that's my puppy here. Sorry. But a friend said to me, well, you know, I don't understand. Why did it happen to me? You know, why me? What did I ever do? What did I ever do to deserve this? Is what she said to me. And I said, well, actually, first of all, I can say, well, why not you? Because every one of us is subject to, you know, to all kinds of experiences. And I know this is a weird thing to say, but in retrospect, many of us can see that those things that caused us pain and harm were obviously the best thing that happened to us and have taught us to learn and to grow. So in retrospect, we can look back and say, I'm glad that happened, because if that hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't be the person I am today. When we're going through pain, it's difficult to see our way through. After the pain, and in retrospect, we can often see, well, you know, I'm glad because it made me a stronger person. And I can say that certainly about the stuff that I've had to go through. You know, I didn't like it when I was going through it, but I'm glad because it makes me the person, it makes me the strong person I am today. Let's have our next question.
Jean asks.
Good morning, Jean.
Good morning, all. Rosemary, I was hoping you could help me. My husband recently died, and one of my sons is acting out in a way that actually has me a bit fearful. I have no idea what to do.
Well, Jean, it's actually very common. It's a very common thing that happens. And, you know, whenever we go through trauma, and especially with our young ones and with our teenagers and so on, how else can they express their grief? Sometimes they have to, as you called it, act out because they don't know any other way of crying out. They don't know. And it's a little bit like, you know, somebody banging their head against a wall. What he's saying to you, I feel, is notice me, because, you know, when you're acting out in this way, he may not even be saying it to you. He may be saying it to his father who is lost. Where are you? Why aren't you with me? Notice me. Are you there? And, you know, he's obviously in such grief and he has no clue how to express that grief. So my suggestion to you is, you know, you can do a few things. You can sit down with, I don't know how close you are to him. I don't know how willing he would be to talk to you. But, you know, to sit and talk to him, to express the grief that you're feeling, to express your feelings and your sadness to him, and talk to him and tell him that you know, make him feel needed, because, you know, let him know that you need his help. But because of all this grief and all of the responsibilities and so on and so forth, and all the fears that you have, and share them with him. You know, so many times people in grief, we try to protect our children. We think that by protecting them, in other words, by not letting them see us cry, by not letting them know how frightened we are, by not letting them see the grief and the pain and the hurt that we're suffering, we think we're protecting them, but actually we're not protecting them at all. What we're doing is we're hiding our own selves. And maybe it is that your son feels, you know, that you're hiding, you're protecting, you know, you're trying to protect him, but in doing so, you've sort of put a shell around yourself so that he can't see you as he ought to see you. So sharing and sitting with your children and sharing and talking about your fears makes them act in a much more responsible way. They have an understanding now that they're not the only ones who are going through this grief. They're not the only ones who are suffering. They're not the, you know, they understand that you understand and you understand them, and they can share their grief with you, but only if you give them permission to share. And you can only give permission to share if you share. So you have to share with them, and in turn, they will share with you. Give it time. Don't think it's going to be an instant fix. Another thing, if that doesn't work, or if you feel that you can't do that, you need to sort of haul your family, you included, to some sort of grief counseling or a bereavement group where you can listen to other people. And there are lots and lots of bereavement groups around where, you know, people, and what it is, a bereavement group is people sharing. They're sharing their grief. They're sharing their grief with strangers, because sometimes we feel that we can share our grief with strangers easier than we can share it with those we are the closest to. but it's about sharing. And this kid is obviously acting out, as you put it, acting out. He's obviously desperately trying in one way or another, and he doesn't know how to do it, but he's desperately trying to share his grief, to have his grief acknowledged, to be able to just express it in one way or another. And if he can't express it through talking and through sharing with you, then he'll find another way to do it. Al, do you want to comment on that at all? Sorry, I've got the dog here going. So I'm thinking we should put him in the kitchen, actually, because he's really there. All right, then. Okay. Just would you say?
Just that you actually gave me a similar advice when my father passed away, with my own children, and it works. Sometimes, especially as a guy, it's hard to express. We're kind of taught in society to not express, and it's not okay to cry and to be tough and all that stuff. So as a guy, it's a little challenging, but I work through, especially with my middle son, just tell him it was okay, and even crying in front of him and getting upset. Sometimes it helps them to kind of release and communicate.
I think that when you cry, you give your family permission to cry.
Yeah.
And if you're not crying and you're seeming to be staunch and brave, they think they have to be the same. But of course, they're kids. They don't know how to do that. So, so share. If you want to talk about it some more, Jean, if you need any help, please email us, rosemary@rosemaryaLtea.com, and we'll, let us know how you get on with that. And even though this is very tough for you, I'm sure, and you're having a very difficult time, I'm so sorry for your loss, but I'm sure your husband is watching you and watching over you and trying to help you the best way that he can. We're going to put the dog away somewhere because this is a bit silly. I think there must be a storm coming, actually. I think that's what's going on here. And he always gets really upset when thunder's about to happen here. So go on, kiddo, off you go. Go on. Why don't you put him in my bedroom? Yeah, I know, baby. Go on, off you go. Go on. Sorry about that. Al, let's have another question while Carolyn's seeing.
Adrian asks, when someone passes away, how fast does it take to leave your body, and what does it feel like? Do you know exactly what is happening?
A lot of people, it happens so fast. Is that Adrian, did you say?
Correct.
Good morning, Adrian. It happens so fast that there's really no time to think, and there's not really quite time to gather up, in your mind what's going on. Especially if your passing is sudden and out of the blue. There are some of us, those who are sick, those who are, sort of taking days or weeks or sometimes even months to sort of make that transition. They're fully aware very often. Of course, it's different for everybody, but very often, if you've had that time to think, and you've obviously, if you're sick and you're sort of preparing for that transition, you have had those experiences or some sort of little out of body experiences. So in that case, people are more aware of what is happening, but it happens in the blink of an eye. But remember that time in the spirit world is a very different concept than time here. So, it's on the one hand, it's slower, and on the other hand, it's faster. I know I'm not being very helpful when I say that, but it's very, very fast, very quick. There was a second part of the question now. Can you repeat the second part of that question?
Yeah, let me locate the question. Sorry.
Sorry.
How fast does it take? What does it feel like? Do you know
what
exactly
does it feel like? Again, it feels, doesn't necessarily feel the same for everybody. I've had people tell me, they felt their angels holding them, and they feel safe. They feel content. They feel almost, well, they are weightless, aren't they? But they feel weightless, and not just in a physical sense, but also in, you know, in a sense of feeling, you know, calm in your mind, and, you know, weightless, as if, you know, it's just this really, really wonderful feeling. Some people have described it. Gregel is reminding me, actually, as I'm talking about this. Some people say it's like sort of stepping into this incredibly beautiful warm bath with silky, silky warm water, and you just sort of step in there. It's sort of like a rebirth, and it's like feeling that you're stepping into this wonderful water that sort of flows over you and encompasses you with all this really good, warm, wonderful feelings. So, but it's different for everybody. Some people, again, I'll say, are aware, and some are more aware, and some are, you know, sort of before you've even had time to think what's going on, it's done and you've arrived. So it's very fast. But a great question. Carolyn, why don't we have a question from you?
Your friend Maggie is joining us.
Good morning, Maggie.
And she's wondering, are we still working on the cookbook? So I assured her every minute we're not on here, we've been working on it.
Look, I'm determined. I said to Carolyn this morning, I'm focusing. I want the cookbook out this Christmas. This will be the third Christmas I've said. Hopefully we'll have the cookbook out. And we are determined, right, yes, Carolyn? Yes. We are determined. Which means, you know, in my spare time, I'm sort of redoing some of the food, some of the recipes, just to check to make sure that they're okay. Yorkshire puddings are on the menu today. I think for some reason or another, I'm reading it through. We're editing as we're talking. We're editing the book. For some reason, I'm looking at the temperature. I'm thinking that's not right. I have to do this again. So, you know, every now and again we come across something I'm not too sure of. So we're on the final stretch. Thank you for asking, Maggie. Do you actually have a question other than for food?
Well, she does, but it's a little bit of a continuation. Her girls took her to high tea for her birthday.
Oh, hi
scones, so she's waiting for your scone recipe.
Okay, then.
But her question is, when your life is a jumble, what can you do to surround yourself in some kind of barrier to be that center of quiet in the storm, so to say?
I think that's a really good question, Maggie, and I you know, email us and let us know how you're doing, by the way. And I understand why you're asking this question. You know, I give my students a lesson: visualize yourself in a bubble. Visualize a bubble, a big giant bubble. And you know how bubbles, you know, when you blow bubbles, and they have all these beautiful rainbow colors, you know, when you're sort of looking at them, and especially if you do it in the light or in the sunshine, they have all these beautiful rainbow colors. And what I do with my students, and often with my patients, is I say, if you can try to visualize yourself, step into a bubble. That's your special place. That's your quiet place. No one else can get in. This is a magic bubble. No one else is allowed inside this bubble unless you invite them in. So if you step into the bubble, you can have peace, you can have quiet, and you have all these gorgeous, beautiful colors, all this lovely energy, because colors represent all the beautiful energy that we have going on in and around us. And we can breathe, and we're safe, and we absolutely know that no one and nothing can get to us. This is our place of peace. This is our place of calm. This is our place where we choose to step in. We just are in there. Now, as we're in there and we're thinking all these good thoughts and we're absorbing all this beautiful, beautiful, wonderful energy, if you want to, if you want to invite someone in, all you have to do is think of a person, and then they can enter that bubble with you. If you want them out of there, just kick them out. You're in charge of this bubble. This is your bubble. But if you want, for instance, if you want to bring your puppy into the bubble with you, or if you want to bring a newborn baby into the bubble with you, or, you know, somebody you love and care about who's going to bring in good energy, if you want to bring me in with you, just step into the bubble, absorb that beautiful energy, think of the person you would like to join you in the bubble, and allow yourself to feel their presence with you, and allow yourself to feel their energy with you. This is such a safe place. It's such a great exercise. And yes, we haven't forgotten about the classes, and we are still working on it. We're almost there, right, Al? We're almost there to getting lessons up and running. And one of those lessons will be about the bubble and how you can recreate these things that give you strength and give you energy and really can bring peace and harmony, even if it's only for 5 minutes in a day, just to have that, just, you know, that injection of beauty and joy and good energy. Al, shall I have another question?
Sure. Albertine asks,
Good morning, Albertine.
imagine you are sensitive, but you do not want to be. How do you turn it and enjoy your gift?
Say the last bit again. I was so busy laughing. Sorry.
Imagine you are sensitive, but do not want to be. How do you turn it and enjoy your gift?
You can't. If you're sensitive, you're sensitive. There's nothing you can do about it, except my advice would be to embrace it. So many people put on the face, you know, the face, you know what I'm talking about. If you're a sensitive person and people are always condemning you, or you have a family who says the problem with you or the trouble with you is you're too sensitive, you're oversensitive. Well, you know, don't tell her anything. She's way too sensitive for her own good. You've heard all of those things. If you're a sensitive person, you've heard all of those things. Which are also hurtful because you're sensitive. So you're going to you're going to respond, you're going to react to what people say about you. And often, you know, I mean, I had it said about me with my family from the time I can remember. And first of all, let me say that the most sensitive people are generally the nicest, and they are the kindest, and they are the most loving, because they're the ones who really, really feel. They really feel. And I know that really feeling is painful. So I'm speaking from my own experience. You know, we don't want people to see what we consider a weakness, because we're told it's a weakness. We're educated to believe it's a weakness. You know, the problem with you, the problem with her, the problem with him is too sensitive, oversensitive. How many times have you out there who are listening been told, you shouldn't be so sensitive? Well, but you are, though. And the only way you can, let's say, Albertine's asking how you can stop it. The only way, you can't stop it, but what people tend to do, which is awful really, is they tend to put a brick wall around themselves because they think the brick wall is going to protect them. So they force themselves to stop reacting when, you know, when sensitivity is called for, when sensitivity is required. Because they put the wall up around themselves, they now don't know what to do with it, because they haven't stopped people from coming in. They've stopped themselves from going out. They've stopped themselves from being able to express that sensitivity. And this is what the wall does. And there are ways you can, you know, and through the classes we're going to be talking about, there are ways that you can take those walls down brick by brick by brick. Being sensitive, being ultra sensitive or super sensitive is the best thing in the world to be. But it's also the most painful thing in the world to be, as those of you who are that way will know. But remember what I said earlier on. Somebody said, you know, about all the issues and the problems and how come we choose to come back here, and some people have it good and some people don't. Do you remember that question? Well, you know, pain is our teacher. It's unfortunate, but there it is. And those of us who are the most sensitive are going to learn the most. It doesn't help us. It's still painful. But if we know that there's a purpose to that pain, and if we can understand that there's a purpose to that pain, then we're able to deal with the pain better than we would if we just think, well, why does it always happen to me? Well, it always happens to you because you need those lessons. You're being given those lessons. Thank God for those lessons, because, you know, if you didn't have those lessons, it means that you're being ignored, and nobody wants to be ignored, do they? So embrace that sensitivity, Albertine. Embrace, you know, encourage other people around you to embrace that sensitivity. It hurts, but it's a learning process. It's not easy, but please don't build a wall around yourself and try to stop that sensitivity, because all that happens is you'll become mean and bitter, and you won't be able to express your sensitivity. And so you'll become less, and you'll become less the more you hide up, you know, from inside the wall. The more you hide inside the wall, the less you will become of who you are meant to be. Let's have another question, or whose turn is it?
I've got one from Ave.
Good morning, Ave.
It happened several times to me that eagles flew into our window and died. Soon after that, somebody near to me passed over. Is an eagle a sign from the other side?
There are lots of things that are signs from the other side. Even birds can often, you know, bring messages, not always awful messages, but birds often are used to bring messages to us. If I see a big bird, for instance, a really big bird, I know that something is you know, I'm being given a sign that something is going to happen, something big is going to happen, whether it's good or bad. I know when I see a, you know, big bird and they make themselves really obvious to me. My puppy's not happy in the bedroom. But when you see a big bird, you know, for me, it portends an event of some kind, whether it's good or bad. Birds hitting the window and dying again, it can portend a death. It can portend some event happening that is going to be very meaningful to you and maybe painful. We should always pay attention to those signs that are given to us from the spirit world and from our loved ones in the spirit world. But remember, you know, our signs don't necessarily mean awful things going to happen. They very often mean that something good is going to happen. Al.
So we have Ronnie with a question.
Good morning, Ronnie.
Person says, so in my past, while I'm near to sleep, I jump up from hearing a sound like firecracker, like a firecracker, but not really firecrackers.
Okay.
It's like, I can't explain what the sound is, but I was wondering why. So they hear like a firecracker sound as they're falling.
Okay, so we're talking about when you're in that half awake, half asleep state, I think. What's the name of this person again?
Ronnie.
Ronnie. Ronnie, I think you're, from what you're describing, you're in that half awake, half asleep state where many things happen, and when we're aware of many things happening. I understand you're hearing some sort of a sound. I get it's not quite a firecracker. I think this is, you know, perhaps this moment when you are more aware of what is in the spirit world, or maybe you're aware of people in the spirit world coming to see you, because in that half awake, half asleep state, we can experience so many things. We can meet people in the spirit world. They're able to come to us. We're able to meet them. We meet in the middle, that sort of thing. The particular sound, it doesn't mean anything bad or good to me. I mean, you'd have to just keep watching. My suggestion to you is keep a pad and a pen by the side of your bed. So when you have these experiences, because you may sort of come out of that state and remember only the sound that you heard. But if you're working on it and you're sort of thinking about it and remembering it, keep the pen and pad by the side of your bed. And you can, when you wake up, in those first moments of waking, you can scribble down anything else that you can remember, or that you're not just that you can remember, but that you are feeling as well. Because it could be very likely that someone in the spirit world who loves you is trying to get through to say hello to you. Even Carolyn, sorry, I'm listening to the puppy, who is, you know, well, too bad for him for now. But anyway, go ahead.
Spray of Laughing Rapids says.
Spray
of Laughing Rapids.
Right.
She got to see you for 2 days out there in Sacramento about 20 years ago, and it was absolutely lovely.
Oh.
And her question is,
did you have that name then? Okay.
Will this life experience have been worth it, no matter how dark or painful?
Without a doubt.
In every soul's case.
Without a doubt. However, okay, I'm going to put a little proviso to that. And thank you for saying, gosh, Sacramento. That must have been when the Eagle and the Rose first came out, maybe. We were on a book tour there, and I love Sacramento. So I'm glad you remember. I'm glad you remembered me. Gosh. All right. So we have all of these experiences. We've already discussed that we have these experiences where we come to this earth plane and so on and so forth, and we come to learn and to grow and etc. All right, that doesn't though mean that that is what we will do. So these things are put in front of us. We take notice of them or we don't. We learn or we don't. All the way along through our lives, no matter what experiences we're having, we make choices. We choose to listen, we choose to learn, we choose to grow, or we choose not to do any or all of those things. We have choices. So it could be that when we leave here, we find that we've missed so many opportunities to learn and to grow. And I'm sure that's going to apply to all of us. I know I missed a few opportunities. But if there are lessons that we are meant to learn, those opportunities will present themselves over and over again, not necessarily the same way, but we'll be given opportunities over and over again throughout our lifetime, so that we have opportunities to, if we have the opportunity and the choice to grab hold of that opportunity and say, yes, I finally get it. I finally get this. So we can choose to learn and grow, and it will be worth it at the end of the day. I'm absolutely certain of it, because first of all, I'm able to talk to Greg and he tells me so. Second of all, I've had so many conversations with people in the spirit world who have said, you know, I now realize that I went through this or that or the other so that I could see better. I can see more clearly. If we don't go through pain and hurt ourselves, remember this, if we don't suffer, how can we recognize somebody else is suffering? We can be sympathetic to people, but how can we be empathetic? We can't be. If we haven't gone through the same or similar hurts and pains, we cannot be empathetic. It's a bit like, you know, I know this is going to sound awful of me, but sometimes, you know, people will say, you know, I've suffered with my back for years and years and years because of my kidney stuff and all that, and my spine is a bit out of alignment and so on and so forth because of all of the surgeries. But if you've never had back pain, you don't know. You have no clue of how we back pain sufferers suffer. You've no clue unless you've been through it. And sometimes when somebody will say to me, I've never had back pain before, but I've got it now, it's an awful thing to say. I have a little smile, because I think to myself, well, now you know. And now you know when somebody else will tell you about back pain, now you know what they're suffering because you've suffered it too. Just a little example of how we become much more empathetic and much more understanding of people if we go through similar hurts and pains. I think we have to let the dog back in. We have to deal with the puffing and the puffing and the panting, because I can't bear to hear him barking like that again. He's in distress. Al, what do you think? Because I know that you're a back pain sufferer, so you probably really resonate with that analogy that I just gave there.
I do. And it reminds me of a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, a very close friend of mine, lost his father about a year before I lost my father. And, you know, I felt really bad for him, and I empathized as much as I could. But it wasn't until I experienced it, losing my father, that I almost felt like, wow, I don't know if I was there enough for him. I don't know if I understood enough for him. So when I went through it myself, it really opened my eyes to what he must have been going through. And I just had no way of understanding.
Right.
I went through
and that's my point. So, you know, sometimes the more we suffer, you know, the more empathetic we can become, and the more understanding we can become of other people's suffering. So there is always an upside here. And it's hard to say that sometimes, because so many people suffer greatly, so many awful things. But suffering is not, you know, it's not for nothing. Let me put it that way. It is not for nothing. And if, you know, I have people who, you know, I think the worst kind of suffering is the loss of a child. But the amount of people who lose a child who I'm so proud of, and so proud to have talked to, and so proud to have gotten to know, the amount of people who use their pain and their loss to help other people, and to finally, you know, they're able to understand what other people are suffering and going through. And, you know, you know, I'm thinking about my friends, Jeff and Andrea. how they are so much more understanding and really have learned and grown through probably their worst nightmare, and are willing to share all of that with so many other people, as you know, as so many of us are able to do. Carolyn.
We've got Jen. Question: if a person with autism or someone that is deaf who can't talk in the earth world, can they talk in the other side when
Yes.
they pass away?
Without a doubt, yes. The same as people who have not been able to walk. There's a story in The Eagle and the Rose. It's one of my most favorite stories of all time. A woman came to see me, and she'd lost her son, David. And David had suffered with cerebral palsy. He was not able to speak. He was not able to walk. He was not able to talk. And she and her husband took care of David instead of putting him in a home, which many people unfortunately have to do because they're not capable of or able to, for one reason or another, of looking after a child like this. But this lovely lady, David's mother, took care of him. She would brush his hair every day. They kept his comb on the fireplace, on the mantelpiece, on the fireplace, and every day, several times a day, she would comb his hair for him and talk to him and so on and so forth. And she always felt that he was listening, that he understood her, but she was, of course, never sure. And so she came to me when he passed, so nervous, wanting to believe, not wanting to believe, having been told by so many people, don't go to her, people like this are no good, and so on and so forth. She finally came to see me, and her son came through to her. And one of his most incredible messages to her was, I can walk, I can talk, I can run, and guess what else? I can play football. So yes, we become whole, we become more than, even those of us who seem to have all of our faculties. You know, we're blind in so many ways. Even those of us who have full sight can be blind in so many ways, can be deaf in so many ways. But once we go into the spirit world and everything becomes light and joy, that light enlightens us. Al? Al.
Sure. Carrie asks.
Good morning, Carrie.
Good morning. I've had the worst luck lately, more than you can imagine.
Please, the worst?
The worst luck, yes. And she's asking specifically for her, but I think it's a good question. Please, can you tell me if things will start getting better? Thank you, and God bless you. So she's had the worst luck, really bad lately, and asking if things will get better.
You know, usually I don't answer these questions because that's not what this show is about. However, Gregor has his hand on my shoulder. I do believe that, Carrie, is it?
Correct.
I do believe that you're an extremely sensitive and gentle person. You don't show it, you hide it, you're behind that wall. But I think because of your sensitivity, you know, things hurt worse. They do. If you're a sensitive person, they hurt worse for you than they might for someone who's not quite as sensitive. I do feel that you've also, from what Gregor tells me, you've gone through an awful lot of trials. It will, I'm hesitating, it will get better, but it'll take a little while. Be patient. I know that's hard to say, especially when, you know, I mean, bad luck, good luck. We've just discussed how, you know, all of this, the awful experiences that we have are given to us to learn and to grow. And I think there's a lesson here for you, Carrie, is to be brave and to show that sensitivity and to let people see how they hurt you and to let people understand how, you know, how things affect you. And I think if you do that and if you're able to share more with people, it doesn't mean the bad stuff is, you know, won't happen. It just means you'll be able to deal with it better because you'll have more support from people once people know how you are affected by these things. And that goes for anybody and everybody who's going through an awful time right there. Carolyn,
Bren has a question.
Bren, good morning.
I'm guardian of my special needs sister. She's always had conversations with, quote, no one I can see. I feel as if she has a closer connection to the spirit world than most. Is that true? Or what are your thoughts on these amazing special needs people?
Well, Gregor has his hand on my shoulder again here. This is a joy of a question. First of all, let me say, because I'm smiling and just thrilled that you have a sister like this, Bren, although for you it has to be so difficult, and you know, the responsibility is so huge. But I think you already know the answer to what you're asking. This is a special child that you have here, beautiful and special and a wonderful child. I cannot tell you that she's an earth angel, but I suspect she may be close to it, something close to it. Gregor's laughing. He was laughing at your question because this child, not a child anymore, I understand, but this child of God is such a special, special child. What do I think about children with special needs? Again, we talked, you know, we ask before we come to this earth. We have certain things we need to learn, certain experiences we have to have in order to grow and to learn. And the most amazing thing is that, you know, these kids, not just kids, but people who seem to be struggling, who have physical disabilities, emotional, mental disabilities, remember that they chose for this experience, and you know, they're learning and growing from it. And you know, I understand if somebody wants to slap me for saying that, because it seems to be such an insensitive thing that I'm saying, but actually it's not. I'm not being insensitive about it, I'm being joyful about it, because I have dealt with, been around, involved with, in so many different ways, children with special needs, adults with special needs, because if we're lucky, those kids do grow up, and but they're given to us. And I think, Bren, you'll know this, because I think you consider your sister as a gift to you. And I think these kids are a gift to all of us, for us to learn, for us to grow from their experiences, because they give us something, they teach us something, they are here for us as well as for themselves. So that's what I think. And we had a few weeks ago, we had a mother here. Where was she from? Argentina. Her son Tomas is an earth angel. You can read about that story in my new book, A Walk in the Clouds. If you want to know where you can get it from, email us, rosemary@rosemaryaLtea.com. You can read about how Tomas is an earth angel, and about how very often people with special needs, people who suffer seemingly so unfairly, they're given to us as gifts. They're brought to us as gifts to our world and to us. So Bren, wow, good for you. Al. Sorry about the dog. Al, do you have a question?
Yes, Melissa asks, when you see someone, are you able to notice a spiritual potential? Have you ever asked someone to be their spiritual teacher?
No, I've never asked anyone if I could be their spiritual teacher, because I would never push myself onto anyone else. But I will make myself available when I talk to people who seem to me to be more sensitive. You see, I applaud sensitivity as much as I understand how painful it can be. So if I see people who are sensitive or have potentially have a gift for healing. I ran a healing organization for more than 30 years, actually. A very successful healing organization. We had many patients through our doors, through our many doors. And I had wonderful students who became then themselves wonderful healers. And so, yes, I don't say to someone, I want to be your teacher, but certainly I encourage people. I'm open-minded about it. I'm happy to, if you want to learn from me, I'm happy to be your teacher. This is why we're doing these classes. We're going to be getting these classes up and running because, you know, the bottom line is I'm a teacher from start to finish, even with my friends. Even if we're just out having dinner or hanging out or going shopping or something, if there is a point to be made or an opportunity to learn something, I'll take it without even thinking about it. Some people might say that's interference, but there you go. Maybe they just see me as an interfering old busybody. I don't know. Carolyn.
Katie asks, are the soul and the spirit the same thing? If not, what are the differences?
I think that came through an email, right?
Yes.
Okay. Are the soul and the spirit the same thing? Katie, good morning. That's a really good question. No, they're not the same thing. The soul is that I don't know what it is. It's that part of us which is of God, that part of us which is us, which drives us forward, which is, you know, sort of expresses itself through our very being. I liken the soul to a flower to a daffodil bulb. If you can visualize a daffodil bulb, that's what you're looking at when you're looking at the soul. And then the spirit of the soul is what I call the flower, the daffodil itself, the flower part, the energy, the beauty and the joy that emanates from that flower bulb, from that core of us. So the soul is that likened to a daffodil bulb and, you know, of substance. It needs nurturing. It comes to this earth. It puts its roots into the earth. And from the earth, it learns and grows. And we feed it. We nurture it. We have to give it light. We have to give it love. We have to give it attention. And we nurture it and it learns and it grows. Sometimes, even if we neglect it, it grows just the same. If we deliberately neglect it and we deliberately stifle it, then of course it's going to, you know, wither up as a flower bulb would. It's just going to wither away. But the spirit is the energy, the flower, the beauty that we see emanating from the soul. Al, another question?
Yeah, we have actually two closely related questions about smell and people smelling people that have passed. Deborah says, good morning, Rosemary. My mom passed away 3 years ago. I found myself smelling her perfume before I went to bed last night. What should she gather from that? And then Jeanette asks, do spirits make...
Well, good morning, Deborah, and good morning, who?
Jeanette. And then Jeanette asks, sorry for combining questions.
No, go ahead. It's a good thing.
She says, do spirits make themselves known through smell? I sometimes smell incense like my grandma used when she prayed her Buddhist prayers.
Upgraded her what?
When she prayed her Buddhist prayers.
Oh, right.
Incense.
Oh, incense. I thought you said insects. I'm sorry. Didn't hear that clearly. Sorry. Incense. Yes, of course, those in the spirit world will make themselves known to us in whatever way they can. And smell is one of the most obvious. I think my grandson already recognizes my perfume. And I think, you know, I use the same perfume. I've used it for years and years and years. No, I'm not going to tell you what it is. But sometimes he'll come and sniff me and he'll say, you smell like Mosey, which is really nice because I am Mosey. So yes, what does it mean when you smell your mother's perfume? It means she's right there. She's trying to let you know that she's right there with you. My father used to use old-fashioned, they called it grill cream, and they probably still have it now. It's probably, you can still get it probably different substance now than it used to be. This greasy stuff that they put on their hair, waxy stuff they put on their hair to make it shine and make it stay in place and so on. But it had a very, very, very distinctive male smell about it. It was very nice, actually. And I can remember many, many, many years ago, I was in bed, I was sound asleep, and I toss and turn in bed a lot. I'm not a you know, don't get into bed and don't move. I mean, that's not me. If you share my bed, I'm going to kick you out of it at some point during the night. And I remember rolling over, and sort of as I rolled over, I sort of, you know, I'm half awake, and the smell of Brill cream was so strong, it sort of took my breath away. And I sort of went back to sleep for a minute or two, and then sort of came awake thinking, wait a minute, that's my dad. And so I opened my eyes, woke up fully at that point, opened my eyes, and the smell of him was still in the room and still so strongly there. And I just smiled and said, hi, Dad, I know you're here with me. And this is what you should do. So smell is very, very powerful. And if you also, can remember our five senses, when we use our five senses and we combine our five senses all together all at one time, this is when our sixth sense will kick in. Again, that's a lesson for another day, and that's a lesson when we do our online lessons. Carolyn.
Vicky asks,
morning, Vicky.
While falling asleep, I hear conversations vaguely. I even get up to tell someone to turn the TV down. TV is on. Am I hearing the other realm?
It sounds to me like you are. You'd have to pay more attention to be sure, because, I'm a very skeptical person. So it could be that you just, you're sort of starting to dream or something, or it could be that you've got close neighbors, or maybe a vivid imagination. But what I would suggest you do, because it does sound to me as if you're sort of hearing the murmurings in the beginnings, it's sort of when you're drifting into that half awake, half asleep state is when you're most aware, consciously aware of what's going on, even if it's a sort of a vague consciousness. So what I'm going to suggest to you that you do, darling, just the same way that I've suggested to somebody else today, is keep a pad and a pen by the side of your bed and start to make notes, and pay, see if you can pay a little bit more attention to what you hear and the sounds that you hear and so on. Because it does sound to me as if perhaps somebody's trying to just let you know that they're around you, and maybe they have something to tell you, even if it's only to say, we love you. Al, I think we have time for another question.
We have a lot of questions about when, just as you're falling asleep today. Terry asks, what does it mean when it feels like you're falling in your sleep and your body jerks and wakes you up? So when you feel like you're falling and your body jerks and kind of wakes you up, what does it mean?
Well, it could mean simply that you've got body twitches, or it could mean that you're coming, you've been very often when we're having an out-of-body experience, and usually we have these out-of-body experiences when we don't even know it's happening, because they happen when we're in our sleep state. But when we're either coming out of it or coming back in, that's when we can come back in with sometimes such a force that it can jerk us awake, and it almost feels as if we're moving sometimes. So so it could just be twitchy body. Again, pay attention when something is happening to you like this. When you're having these experiences, pay attention, and pay attention to how often these things happen to you. Pay attention to what time of the day or night it is that they're happening to you. Pay attention to whether you were in that half asleep state. So be critical. Don't just take the first answer that comes into your mind, but always listen to your instincts, and remember that the first answer is usually the right one. But just take your time and research it, and just go in gently. I think. Are we done? I think
we have many questions if you want to go a couple minutes longer.
Let's go then. Are you all right, Al, to go a bit longer?
Yeah, I can go a couple minutes.
And just remember that we're here on Fridays as well at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Let's have another question from you, Caroline. Quick question.
To tell you that Brill cream hasn't changed.
Good.
Chris asks, my brother-in-law passed in July. He left 3 special needs children. Is there anything specific that Gray Eagle can share that would touch their souls and help them cope and move forward?
This is our Chris, Rosemary.
I'm going to answer that. Chris, call me and I'll talk to you about that another time. It's not that I'm dismissing Chris, all of you out there.
Case is wondering if her case, Michelle, is wondering if her son's father/sister are talking to them. Michelle is asking if her son.
Yeah, I got it. And the quick answer is actually yes, they are. Another question.
Yeah, I'm looking through, Rosemary. Sorry.
Okay, Karen, do you have another one?
Something?
Sure, we do. Okay. Terry was following up with, it is when I'm sleeping like I'm falling from a cliff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can spirits get upset with us and stop contacting us? Teresa would like to know.
They can actually. They can, you know, if we're not behaving as they might. It's a bit like, okay, this is how it is. All right, if you're a family and you're continually fighting or arguing or being mean to each other, right? You're going to have less friends and less visitors come to see you. You know, if you have a dinner party and all you do is argue over the dinner party, those guests you have are not going to come to your dinner party again, because nobody wants to listen to people arguing and fighting and so on and so forth. You know, so you either resolve your issues and you treat people respectfully, or they're not going to come back to talk to you. And it's the same in the spirit world. And I've heard people in the spirit world often say, I don't visit nearly as often as I should because because I can't stand to hear them arguing. Think about that. A good reason for you to get your life on track, to stop arguing with people. You know, there are some people who just love to argue. Stop it. You know, it's unpleasant for everybody else around. And if you remember, those in the spirit world are around us, whether you can see them or not, whether you know them or not. We forget that. They can hear all the awful stuff we say. They can hear all the bad stuff we say. They can also hear all the good stuff and the loving stuff we say. I can remember when I first realized that those in the spirit world, they don't have to even hear us speak. They know what's in our hearts and they can hear what's in our head as if we're speaking it out loud. Thought is everything. Our thoughts travel. Thoughts are everything. And I can remember when I first realized that. I can remember it was years ago. I can remember being in the kitchen when I first suddenly thought, oh my gosh, they can hear my thoughts. They can hear what I'm thinking. And I started to change my way of thinking about things. I started to think nicer thoughts because I wanted people in the spirit world to want to come to visit me. So it made me change. It made me aware, and it made me much more willing and much more ready to be nice, and not just outwardly so people could see me being nice, but inside of myself, in my head, with my thoughts, inside of myself, I knew that I needed to be the nicest that I could be, whether anybody was watching or not. I think that's it. Where our time is up. We've had a wonderful, wonderful time. Love your questions. Remember, you can get us on Facebook, Al, is it? And we go on the healing page initially. If you want to join us live, we're on the healing page, Rosemary's healing page. But then we sort of share it. And if you could share this that you've been watching today, if you could share whatever we do on Facebook or wherever we are, if you can't make it live, you'll see it on my Facebook page, or you'll see it on YouTube in the same way that you can see this show on YouTube. If you want to participate with us, if you want to be on screen, or if you just have a question, you want to know attitude, everything is about attitude, and you're going through a situation. I mean, there are 2 or 3 questions a day I felt could have been used for the Everything is Attitude show, right, Al? We could have used them tomorrow instead of today. But if you want to know about how you can change your attitude, how you can change your life, what you need to do, and you want to come on our show, Al, can you give us that email again, please?
It's info, at everythingisattitude.com.
Okay, very simple and easy. Info. Say it again.
Info at everythingisattitude.com.
Great. So, and so, of course, if you want to join us here, if you want to come and sit on my sofa, by all means, come and sit on my sofa. Tomorrow, I think we have a guest on our 6 o'clock show. We have a guest on our Everything is Attitude show. We have, I think, Paul from England is going to be with us. Again, if you want to be on, if you want to connect, if you have a question or an issue that's going on in your life and you need a little bit of help and guidance, please join us. You can, you know, put forth your questions, and we'll do our best to help you. That'll be Al and I on that, and you can, you know, check out. Al has a Facebook also. Check out Al's info. He's an educator, a professional educator. Wow, just imagine that. And he has, you know, we're going to talk about more of that tomorrow. So thank you for joining us today. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us all over the place on social media. We are here, and you can find us and this show on YouTube. Share with us. I want to say thank you to Carolyn for joining us and helping out with the questions. I would like to say thank you to you, Al, for joining us. And of course, last but never least, I'd like to say thank you to Great Eagle and to all of you out there. So until we see you again, hopefully tomorrow, and if not next week, please, please, please have a very, very blessed day. I've now got to find that little white arrow. There it is. It's coming. Have a very, very, very blessed day, everyone.